the European Commission's translation service known as DGT in the local lingo, is one of the largest translation services in the world. It is also very experienced because the EU, European Union, started off with 6 countries. Today there are 27, and when Croatia joins, there will be 28 countries. Last year, the Director General for Translation translated 2.1 million pages. Out of these, 72% were translated in-house and 28% by freelancers. The DGT, who is the employer, Mr. Bock and myself, employs 2,500 staff. Out of these, 1,650 are translators, and the rest are managers, assistants, and IT support staff. I said DGT is experienced. Yes, because the DGT has gone through 6 enlargements, actually 7 if you count the inclusion of Eastern Germany in 1990, but we don't really because it didn't have a new language. So 6 enlargements. And we have the experience not only of adding new languages, but also new alphabets, since with Bulgarian and Greek, the Cyrillic alphabet was also introduced. Now, on the 1st of July 2013, Croatia will accede to the European Union, and Croatian will then be an official language of the EU. You may wonder who decides what the official language of a particular country is going to be. It is not the Commission. It's actually the country itself which decides what language they would like to use as their official language. A decision is then taken unanimously in the Council, and the decision is then enshrined in the accession treaty. A country may change its mind. Remember when Malta first applied to be part of the European Union, they said they wanted to use English as their official language. They then withdrew their application, and when they came back next time, they said Maltese was going to be their official language. So this clearly shows that it's the language of the country itself which decides what the official language is going to be. The route to any accession for any country is long and cumbersome, to say the least. There are a myriad of criteria that have to be fulfilled. We will look very shortly at one of the criteria which makes sense here and now, and that is the linguistic criterion. Every single legislative act that has been translated up to the date when Croatia joins the European Union has to be translated into Croatian and available in Croatian on the day of accession. This is one of the accession criteria. Who translates these millions of pages? Well, it's actually the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and European Integration here in Zagreb that has this daunting task. In our local jargon, all this legislation that has been adopted until Croatia joins is known by the French word acquis. And this acquis also has to be published in a special edition of the European Union's official journal and be available on the day of accession. The reason why is, of course, first of all, that when Croatia joins the EU, all EU law will be applicable in Croatia. And people have to know, they have to be able to read in their own language what laws apply. Courts have to be able to work with laws in their own language. But there is also another reason, and that is that we have to avoid that there are laws which have not yet been published in Croatian, but which are part of the EU law when Croatia accedes. If they are not available in Croatian, this creates a legal vacuum which can be exploited for unwanted consequences. Being an official language in the EU creates both obligations and rights. An obligation is, of course, to continue to provide high-quality translations into Croatian as from the day of accession. Because all legislation and all communication that the EU wants to have with its citizens has to be available in the languages of the member states. Rights, I also mentioned. As from the 1st of July 2013, anybody will have the right to contact institutions in Croatian and to get a reply in Croatian too. This is very important because the EU, as you may have heard, is very anxious to eliminate the gap which is sometimes perceived between what happens in Brussels and Luxembourg and what happens surplus in the countries themselves. So therefore it is very important that everything that the citizens can communicate in their own language with the institutions. Now, as I said before, Mr. Bock and I, we come from the DGT, the Director General for Translation of the European Commission, and we have been actively preparing for the day when Croatia will be a member of the European Union since last year. We have recruited temporary staff. Today, it's Monday today, there are 16 translators and 6 assistants working in an office, or several offices actually, in Brussels. We have created translation memories. We are extracting terminology from already translated acquis. They will be translating templates relating not least to agriculture. We are preparing to set up a fully fledged language department. Today, the Croatians, your Croatian compatriots, my colleagues, we are working as a task force, but a proper department will be set up. There will be a field office, and Mr. Bock is going to be the future field officer at the field office in Zagreb. And we have also organized a call for tenders for freelancers, so that on the day of accession again, what we cannot translate ourselves, we will have the possibility to outsource to freelancers. However, it's important to note that before accession, only temporary staff can be recruited. After accession, the DGT and the other institutions are hoping to recruit sufficient numbers of permanent staff. You can only become a permanent member of staff by passing an open competition organized by the European Personnel and Selection Office. The DGT, sorry, I have moved. There we are, yes, so the DGT needs Croatian, permanent Croatian staff. We will need, in order to set up a department on a par with all other language departments, 61 translators, 12 assistants, and 3 managers. I'm sorry, there's a mistake on the slide. It should read 12 assistants. After the 3 managers, 2 will be heads of unit who report to a head of department. 50% of the staff, once the department is up and running, will be located in Brussels, and 50% in Luxembourg. Just to give you an idea of the size, I was saying earlier that the Commission is the largest has the largest translation service of all the 10 institutions. The Council, for example, will employ 26 translators, 9 assistants. The European Parliament, more or less the same figure, 27 translators, 11 assistants. And then the European Economic and Social Committee, plus the Committee of the Regions, share the translation service. They will employ 15 translators and 5 assistants. And the very smallest institution with its own translators is the Court of Auditors. They will employ 4 translators. I'm talking about Croatian translators now. I'm not pushing hard enough. Now, here we go. Qualified translators are key. Why? Well, without translation, the entire EU machinery grinds to a halt. It's as simple as that. If we don't translate, we can't publish any legislation, nothing happens. Why do we need highly qualified translators? The reason why is that a lot of legislation and other documents which are produced in the Commission are extremely complex and sometimes of a highly technical nature. So the institutions really need the best translators available. Past enlargements have shown that it is not always easy to get sufficient numbers of highly qualified translators to satisfy the needs of all institutions. As a result, the DGT has taken the lead to encourage translator training in general. Of course, it's still the member states who have the competence to decide on educational matters, so DGT can only encourage. But it does do it via... via which is called something which is called the European Masters in Translation. Putting it in a nutshell, it's a quality label for university translation programs that agree to standards that comply to standards that have been agreed to between the DGT and various universities. There are two potential candidates for this partnership, if you like. In Croatia, it's the University of Zagreb and the University of Zagreb. This brings me back to the most important message of the day, I think, which is the fact that the open competition for Croatian translators opens on the 21st of June and closes on the 24th of July. You have to apply online, and the address is there. I think we may do
handout?
Yeah.
Yes, you'll find some handouts at the entrance with more detailed information on most of the aspects that Annika has been.
Yeah. And as you can see, on that very same day, two more competitions for linguists, for interpreters and for lawyer linguists, open on the same day. Lawyer linguists are people who basically work for the legal services of the different institutions or for the Court of Justice, whose translation service consists of lawyer linguists only. With this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and Mr. Bock and I will try to reply to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Can I make a comment before the questions? Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I don't need them for speaking.
Yeah.
Before the questions, I'd like to point something out to you. We are getting questions from language students and other students on what is it like to work in European institutions as a translator. So the DGT, together with the other institutions, has decided to make this week the Croatian week on Facebook, and I'd like you to inform whoever you can that if you go on Facebook and go to Translating for Europe in one word, you can post all the questions that you like, and there will be someone to answer your questions also in Croatian.
Mogu ja nekada Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much for all these informations. I would like to know and to write to my readers. Probably people are interested. So, what is the procedure after people apply? So, what does it mean? I mean, what do you need after that to really become a candidate to be employed by European Commission? Thank you.
You mean the procedure?
The
overall?
procedure, yes. Overall, I mean, for those group of people who are going to apply, I suppose there are going to be many, many young people, because we have a lot of educated people speaking languages and being unemployed at the moment. So what is the procedure? How are you going to choose the candidates? What kind of tests or whatever? I would like to know as much as possible. Thank you.
Well, very briefly, it's a procedure that takes between 5 and 9 months. We expect to have a reserve list of candidates that we can recruit by spring next year.